Welcome to ATQ Computer Classes. In this video, we are going to talk about a most important part of the computer, that is RAM. RAM stands for Random Access Memory and it requires a constant electrical power to store the data. And all data will erase if we turn off the power. That's why it is a volatile memory. It holds the data and program that CPU is using, and it is main memory for the computer and also called as primary memory of the computer. There are two types of RAM, SRAM and DRAM. SRAM stands for Static Random Access Memory. SRAM uses transistors. It holds less data, it is large and expensive, but it is fast working and no need of power refreshing. It needs continuous power supply, that is power consuming and expensive. Another one is DRAM. DRAM stands for Dynamic Random Access Memory and it uses capacitors. Capacitors need power refreshing constantly in every 2 milliseconds, and all data will erase if we turn off the power. It holds more data than SRAM and it is smaller and affordable but slower than static RAM. DRAM operates asynchronously with the system clock, means it doesn't run at the same speed as the processor. Let's understand type of dynamic RAM. Let's start with DIP. DIP is a dual inline package. It is a socket type memory and the package may be through-hole mounted to a printed circuit board or inserted in a socket. It is a small amount of memories that released in 1964. A DIP is usually referred to as a DIP N, where N is the total number of pins. For example, a microcircuit package with 2 rows of 7 vertical leads would be a DIP 14. Common packages have as few as 3 and as many as 64 leads. The next advancement of DIP is SIP. SIP is single inline pin package. It is a set of DIP chips mounted on a printed circuit board. It is extinct because the pins were easy to bend and break. It needs some modification to prevent this problem. The next advancement of DIP, a SIM. SIM is a single inline memory module. It is the change style of SIP. It also has a set of DIPs on a single PCB, but the pins are also printed on the PCB. It holds more data than a SIP or a DIP. It comes with two variants, 32 pin and 72 pin. There is a notch right after the 36 pin and all the 32 pins or 72 pins are printed on the same side. The next DRAM was SDRAM. SDRAM stands for Synchronous Dynamic Random Access Memory. It comes with a new module type that is called DIMM. DIMM stands for Dual Inline Memory Module. The difference between SDRAM or DRAM is SDRAM operates synchronously with the system clock as compared to DRAM that operates asynchronously with the system clock. Means SDRAM runs at the same speed as the processor, but DRAM doesn't run at the same speed as the processor. A DIMM can have 168, 184, 240 or 288 pins. A DIMM comes with a 64-bit data path. Before continuing with RAM, let's understand the term 64-bit data path. The smallest form of the data that computer reads is a single bit or 1 bit that is in the form of zeros and ones and also called as binary language. CPU understands the binary language and converts it into a set of 8 bits that can be understood by a human brain as a character. 8 bits is called 1 byte or a single character. In another way, we can say 8 binary digits is equals to 1 character that can be understood by a human brain. Now the data path of 64-bit have 8-byte wide bus because 64 divided by 8 bits is equals to 8 bytes. In the simple way, we can say the data transfer rate in a 64-bit data path will be 8 characters per clock cycle or 8-byte wide bus. And the same for 32-bit data path. 32 divided by 8 bits is equals to 4 byte, and the data transfer rate will be 4 characters per clock cycle. The term 64 or 32-bit data path means the number of bits of the data transferring in a clock cycle. DIMM can send 64-bit data in a single clock cycle as compared to older SIM that sends or receives 32-bit data in a clock cycle. Sending more data in a single clock cycle is a reason of fast processing. By year 2000, SDRAM had replaced virtually all other type of DRAM in modern computer because of its greater performance, and the new technology of SDRAM was introduced as DDR. DDR stands for double data rate, while all the older RAM was SDR or non-DDR. Let's understand the difference between DDR and SDR RAM. DDR RAM sends or receives the data in the rising and the falling edge of a clock cycle as compared to a non-DDR that sends or receives the data only on the rising edge of a clock cycle. The DDR sends twice the data as compared to non-DDR. That's why DDR works faster than SDR because it sends twice the data in a single clock cycle, and it is also a reason of fast processing. As on year 2022, the 5 variants of DDR has been released, and the DDR6 will be released in 2024 or later. DDR may include both the clock speed and the total bandwidth in its name, like DDR400, PC3200. The 400 is the speed at which the RAM operates in megahertz, and 400 megahertz multiplied with 8 bytes is equals to 32 megabytes per second. DDR1 has 184 pins and 92 pins per side. DDR2, it includes a 2 in the label as DDR2 1066, PC2 8500. 1066 megahertz multiplied with 8 bytes is 8528 megabytes per second in actual, but it is rounded off as 8500 megabytes per second to make it easy in read. It has 240 pins, 120 pins per side, and it is 2.5 times faster than DDR1. DDR3 includes a 3 in the label as DDR3 2133 MHz, PC3 17000. 2133 MHz multiplied with 8 bytes is equals to 17064 megabytes per second, and it is also rounded off 17,000 megabytes per second on the label to make it easy in read. It also has 240 pins, 120 pins per side, and it is 4 times faster than DDR1, 2.1 times faster than DDR2. DDR4 includes a 4 in the label, and the maximum speed of DDR4 is 25,600 megabytes per second. It has 288 pins, 144 pins per side. It is 8 times faster than DDR1, 3 times faster than DDR2, and 1.5 times faster than DDR3. DDR5 includes a 5, and the maximum speed of the DDR5 is 57,600 megabytes per second. It also has 288 pins, and it is 18 times faster than DDR1, 6.8 times faster than DDR2, 3.4 times faster than DDR3, and 2.3 times faster than DDR4. The variant DDR6 is the future variant of the DDR SDRAM, and it will be released in the 2024 or later, and can't be exactly compared with the current DDR SDRAM, but it will be include a 6 in the label. Now let's see an approx difference, not the exact, in the notches of DDR. The notch position in every DDR variant is different, so we cannot use a DDR variant as a substitute of another DDR variant. Another type of RAM is ECC RAM. ECC RAM stands for Error Correcting Code Random Access Memory. Sometimes there are circumstances where memory data corruption cannot be tolerated. It detects if the data was correctly processed by the memory module and it makes a correction if it needs to. The difference between ECC RAM and non-ECC RAM: ECC RAM has 9 chips while a non-ECC RAM has 8 chips. Another 1SD RAM module is RIM. RIM stands for Rambus Inline Memory Module and also called as RDRAM. RDRAM stands for Rambus Dynamic Random Access Memory. It has 184 pins, 92 pins per side. It looks similar to DIMM, but it has 2 notches near the center of the module. It was a breakthrough in the speed, and all the memory slots on the computer must be filled with a RDRAM. If we left any memory slots unused, then unused slots must have a continuity module installed. Current Rambus Dynamic RAM and Direct Rambus Dynamic RAM are types of synchronous dynamic random access memory developed by Rambus from the 1990s through to the early 2000s. All the sockets or modules of RAM are installed on the motherboard or PCB and calls memory slots. RAM installs on the motherboard on PCB in the memory slots. An average motherboard can have 2 and 4 memory slots. Let's understand why RAM is required. To run a program, it needs to be loaded into RAM first. Once the data loaded into RAM, now CPU can access the data to run the program. If RAM is low, the CPU needs to do some extra work for receiving and sending data back, and we can get some errors due to slower RAM. Errors like program is restarting, program is stopped working, or program is not responding. All you need to do to fix these problems is increase the amount of RAM. Upgrading or increasing the amount of RAM can speed up a slow system. Thanks for watching.